The vast command ship of the Galactic Confederation dwarfed every human vessel in Earth's orbit. Lieutenant Tae Kim stood straight-backed on the observation deck, watching Earth grow smaller as they departed. The year 2045 had changed everything. First contact. Alien civilization. And now, humanity's official entry into galactic society. Still admiring your mudball, a gravelly voice said behind him. Commander Rock, a 7-foot reptilian Crozorn warrior, had developed a habit of finding Kim whenever possible. His scaled skin gleamed under the artificial lights as his lips pulled back to reveal sharp teeth. Just saying goodbye, Kim replied calmly. His SAS training had prepared him for many things, though dealing with alien mockery hadn't been in the manual. You'll be saying goodbye to your pride soon enough. Rock laughed, the sound like stones grinding together. Your team's participation in the combat exercises will provide excellent entertainment. Kim's 4-person SAS team had been selected to represent Earth in the Confederation's joint military training. The British Special Air Service was among humanity's elite fighting forces, but here among the stars, they were seen as primitive curiosities. We'll do our best, Kim said simply. Your best? Rock snorted. Your species can barely leave your own system. Your weapons are primitive. And physically. The alien gestured at Kim's frame, which was muscular by human standards but slight compared to the Crozorn. Well, I'll try not to break any of you during hand-to-hand sessions. Later, in the quarters assigned to the human delegation, Kim briefed his team. Sergeant Min looked annoyed. Corporal June was checking their equipment for the 100th time. Lieutenant Han studied the training schedule on her tablet. They're going to underestimate us, Kim said. Let them. Han looked up. The Crozorn have bone density 3 times ours and can bench press small vehicles. The Talari can see in spectrums we can't imagine. The Vorex have natural armor. What exactly is our advantage? We're sneaky bastards, Min said with a grin. Kim nodded. Observation first. We learn everything about them. They learn only what we want them to see. The next morning, the SAS team entered the vast training hall. A dozen alien species gathered in their respective units. Some resembled insects, others were vaguely humanoid, and a few defied easy description. The Crozorn warriors dominated the center of the room, performing feats of strength that drew admiration from others. The humans' entrance barely registered until Commander Rock spotted them. Ah! Our primitive friends have arrived, he announced loudly. Perhaps they would like to demonstrate their capabilities? All eyes turned to the SAS team. Kim knew this was deliberate, force them to reveal their tactics early or lose face. After you, Commander, Kim said politely. We're here to learn. The training sessions that followed were brutal. In physical challenges, the humans were outmatched. The Crozorn took particular pleasure in demonstrating their superiority, throwing Kim's team members across training mats with casual ease. Yet Kim noticed things. How the Crozorn relied on strength over strategy. How the insectoid Tulari had exceptional sensory awareness but poor coordination in confined spaces. How every species had adapted to specific environments and threats. They're laughing at us, June muttered after a particularly humiliating combat simulation. Let them laugh, Kim replied quietly. Notice how none of them work well in the dark? Or how dependent they are on their technology. After 2 weeks of being the training ground's joke, the alarm sounded. The massive screens in the command center showed a space station under attack. The Arcturus station, a major trading hub and current home to over 3,000 civilians from various species. Terrorists have seized control, the Confederation General announced. They've demanded political prisoners be released or they'll vent the station. Commander Rock stepped forward immediately. My warriors can retake the station within 6 hours. With what casualty estimate? Asked a diplomat. Acceptable ones, Rock replied. The room erupted in debate. Kim studied the station schematics now displayed on the screens. He noticed maintenance tunnels, environmental control access points, and security measures that all looked workable. We could do it with 0 civilian casualties, Kim said quietly. The room fell silent, then erupted in laughter. Commander Rock's booming voice rose above the rest. The primitives think they can succeed where the galaxy's elite warriors would struggle? He slapped his armored chest. Your soft bodies would be broken before you reached the first deck. The human ambassador, a dignified woman named Director Park, had endured weeks of watching her military personnel belittled. She stepped forward. Perhaps, she said firmly, this is an opportunity to test different approaches. The SAS specializes in exactly this type of operation. The Confederation general looked skeptical but intrigued. A competition, then? Both teams attempt the mission in simulation? No, Kim said, surprising everyone. Real mission. Real stakes. If civilian lives are at risk, we want to help. Commander Rock stared at Kim, then laughed again, but with less certainty. Agreed. We shall see what the humans can do besides talk. The command center of the Confederation vessel hummed with activity as tactical displays showed the Arcturus station's schematics. Terrorist forces had secured all main access points, with hostages gathered in 3 primary locations. The station's elegant ring design, usually celebrated for its beauty, now presented a nightmarish rescue scenario. Commander Rock stood at the central platform, his scaled skin catching the light as he gestured to entry points. We strike here and here, he said, pointing to the main docking bays. My warriors will secure the primary corridors and then split into assault teams. The Confederation general, an ancient Sixland being named Admiral Toll, raised an upper limb. And the hostages? Some losses are inevitable in such operations, Rock replied dismissively. But we will minimize them. Lieutenant Kim studied the schematics quietly from the back of the room. Sergeant Min leaned close. See what I see? Kim nodded slightly. The maintenance tunnels. The environmental control access points. The station's automated systems. All ignored in the Crozorn battle plan. Ambassador Park watched Kim with knowing eyes. She had selected the SAS team personally, aware of their reputation for doing the impossible with minimal resources. The human team will require significant protective gear, Rock continued, as their bodies cannot withstand even brief exposure to vacuum or the toxins the terrorists have threatened to release. Actually, Kim said, his voice carrying across the room despite its quiet tone, we believe we can secure the station with 0 civilian casualties and minimal damage to infrastructure. The room fell silent, then erupted in disbelieving chatter. Commander Rock's head snapped toward Kim, yellow eyes narrowing. Impossible, he hissed. Your species lacks the strength, speed, and technology to accomplish such a feat. Perhaps, Kim replied, but we have other attributes. Rock stalked toward the human, towering over him. Such as? I'd rather not telegraph our approach, Kim said calmly. But we've been studying this station design since we arrived. We believe we can infiltrate without detection and neutralize the threat before they know we're there. The Crozorn commander's laugh echoed through the chamber. The humans think they can outperform the galaxy's premier warriors. With what? Their tiny muscles and primitive weapons? Admiral Toll raised all 6 limbs for silence. This is not a competition for glory. Lives are at stake. Precisely, Ambassador Park interjected. Which is why we should consider all options. The SAS specializes in hostage rescue under extreme conditions. On your primitive world, perhaps, Rock snorted. This is a Galactic-class station with enemies from advanced civilizations. Lieutenant Han stepped forward, her voice firm despite her small stature compared to the aliens. With respect, Commander, sometimes advanced civilizations overlook simple solutions. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut. Kim could see the Confederation officers exchanging uncertain glances. None had expected the humans to volunteer, let alone claim they could succeed where the feared Crozorn might fail. Admiral Toll's compound eyes studied the humans carefully. You understand the stakes? If you fail, if the terrorists detect your approach, they will execute hostages. We understand, Kim replied. This is what we train for. A battle of approaches then, Rock declared, his scaled skin flushing deeper red with excitement. My warriors against the humans. We shall see who secures the station first. This isn't a competition, Kim said firmly. If both teams operate independently, we risk crossfire or alerting the terrorists. We should coordinate. Rock's tongue flicked out, a sign of agitation. You wish to hide behind my warriors? No, Kim replied. I propose we take different approaches. Your team can prepare for a frontal assault as a diversion, while we infiltrate through alternative means. And claim the victory while we draw their fire? Rock snarled. I think not. Enough. Admiral Toll's voice carried surprising authority. Commander Rock, you will proceed with your primary assault plan. Lieutenant Kim, your team may attempt your alternative approach. But know this, if either team compromises the mission, I will hold you personally responsible. As the briefing concluded, Kim gathered his team in their quarters. They had 30 minutes to prepare before deployment. They still think we're jokes, Corporal June said, checking his gear. Good, Kim replied. Let them. Lieutenant Han spread the station schematics across the table. I've identified 17 potential entry points that the Crozorn haven't considered. Their focus on direct confrontation leaves blind spots. Sergeant Min grinned as he assembled a small device. They have no idea what's coming, do they? No, Kim said, his eyes fixed on the station design. They expect strength to solve this problem. But strength isn't what those hostages need right now. As they prepared to board their insertion craft, Commander Rock approached, his massive frame blocking the corridor. When you fail, he said quietly, do not call for help. My warriors will not risk their mission to save primitives who should have stayed on their home world. Kim looked up at the towering alien. We won't fail. And if you need our help, Commander, all you have to do is ask. The Crozorn stormed away, leaving the humans to their final preparations. The mission to save Arcturus Station was about to begin. The small human craft approached Arcturus Station from beneath its main ring, using the massive structure's own shadow as cover. Unlike the Crozorn assault craft, which bristled with weapons and thrummed with powerful engines, the SAS vessel was quiet, dark, and barely larger than a supply shuttle. They'd begun their approach, Lieutenant Han said, monitoring the tactical display. The blinking red indicators showing Commander Rock's warriors were moving directly toward the main docking bay, exactly as they had announced. Lieutenant Kim nodded. Right on schedule. Loud and proud. Their craft drifted toward a maintenance airlock on the station's underside, an entry point so small that the station's designers had never considered it a security risk. It was barely large enough for maintenance drones, let alone warriors like the Crozorn. Docking in 30 seconds, Corporal June whispered, though there was no need for quiet in the vacuum of space. Old habits from Earth operations died hard. Their timing had to be perfect. As the Crozorn forces engaged the terrorists at the main docking bay, all eyes and sensors would be drawn there. The SAS team had that brief window to slip in unnoticed. A gentle thud indicated contact. Sergeant Min attached a circular device to the airlock's exterior panel. It glowed briefly, bypassing the security system without triggering alarms. We're in, he said. The four humans squeezed through the tiny airlock one by one. Their specially designed gear was minimal, far less bulky than standard Confederation combat suits. Kim had insisted on this approach despite warnings about the station's environment. Atmospheric reading normal, Han confirmed as they entered the narrow maintenance tunnel. No toxins detected. The passage was cramped, dark, and filled with cables and pipes, perfect for the SAS team but impossible for the larger alien species to navigate. They moved quickly through the maze-like tunnels, following the path Han had memorized. Meanwhile, their comms picked up the battle raging at the main entrance. Commander Rock's booming voice ordered his warriors forward as they encountered heavy resistance. They've lost 3 already, Han whispered, listening to the tactical chatter. Kim said nothing. The Crozorn approach was exactly what he'd expected, direct, powerful, and ultimately predictable. The terrorists would have prepared for exactly such an assault. The team reached a junction point where the maintenance tunnel connected to a ventilation shaft. Below them, through a grated opening, they could see a group of terrorists, a mix of rogue Talari and Vorax mercenaries, rushing to reinforce their comrades fighting the Krozorn. "They're thinning out their hostage guards," Kim observed. "Just as we hoped." Moving with practiced silence, the team continued until they reached the first hostage zone, a passenger lounge now converted to a prison. Through a small service panel, they could see 20 civilians huddled together, guarded by just 2 armed terrorists. "Min," Kim said quietly. The sergeant removed a small canister from his pack and set its timer. When the team had withdrawn to a safe distance, he released it into the ventilation system leading to the room. Within seconds, a colorless, odorless gas spread through the hostage area. The 2 guards swayed on their feet before collapsing in unconscious heaps. The gas, developed on Earth and unknown to the Confederation, affected only the specific nervous systems of the terrorist species while leaving the hostages conscious. "First room secured," Kim reported into his calm, though not on the main Confederation channel. Their operation remains separate from the official battle logs. They entered through the service panel, quickly zip-tying the unconscious guards. "We're here to help," Han told the startled hostages in the Confederation common language. "Please remain calm and quiet." Meanwhile, the sounds of battle grew more intense from the main corridors. The Krozorn were advancing but taking heavy casualties. Their powerful weapons and armor weren't well suited to the station's confined spaces, and the terrorists had set numerous traps. "Second hostage group is 2 levels up," Kim said, consulting the small holomap projected from his wrist device. "Min, secure these civilians in the emergency shelter. The rest of us will move ahead." As they prepared to exit, an announcement echoed through the station. "Confederation forces. You have 1 hour to withdraw, or we will begin executing hostages. To prove our resolve, we will kill the first 10 now." Kim froze, then turned to Han. "Which hostage group are they targeting?" She worked her device frantically. "The command center group. We're too far away." New plan, Kim decided instantly. "June, get these people to safety." "Han, with me. We're going to the command center." The 2 officers rushed through the maintenance tunnels at a dangerous pace, occasionally crossing exposed areas where they risked detection. In the background, they could hear Commander Rock bellowing orders to push forward faster, his warriors hampered by the station's architecture. Reaching a junction point above the command center, Kim and Han peered through a vent. 10 hostages knelt in a line, heads bowed, as a Vorax terrorist checked a timer. 3 minutes until the first execution, Han whispered. Kim studied the room layout, counting 8 terrorists with heavy weapons. A direct assault would fail. "The environmental controls," he said suddenly, pointing to a panel across the tunnel. "Can you trigger the fire suppression system in just that room?" Han nodded and began working on the controls while Kim prepared their remaining gas canisters. The seconds ticked by with excruciating slowness. "Ready," Han finally said. "Now." The command center's lights flashed red as the fire alarm triggered. As the terrorists looked up in confusion, white suppression foam began spraying from the ceiling. In that moment of distraction, Kim dropped the gas canisters through the vent and sealed it again. Within seconds, the terrorists began collapsing, overcome by the combination of suppression foam and sedative gas. Kim and Han broke through the vent, dropping into the command center with weapons drawn. The last terrorist fell just as Commander Rock's voice boomed over the calm. "We are encountering heavy resistance. What is your status with the hostages?" Kim looked at the saved civilians, then at Han. With a small smile, he activated his calm silence filled the communication channel after Lieutenant Kim's report. He could almost picture Commander Rock's reptilian face frozen in disbelief. The hostages in the command center stared at the 2 human soldiers with a mixture of relief and astonishment. "Impossible," Rock's voice finally crackled through the calm. "How did you?" An explosion cut him off, followed by sounds of intense combat. Kim exchanged glances with Lieutenant Han. "Commander, what's your situation?" Kim asked, already moving to the command center's main console. "Ambush," Rock growled between heavy breaths. They were waiting, heavy resistance, lost 5 warriors already. Han activated the station's internal security feed on the console. The screen showed the Crozorn team pinned down in a wide corridor. Terrorists had sealed both ends and were firing from elevated positions. "They're trapped," Han said quietly. One of the freed hostages, a tall blue-skinned Novan, stepped forward. "I'm the station's safety officer. The terrorists have rigged the life support systems. If they feel cornered, they'll vent all atmosphere in sections they don't control." Kim nodded grimly. "Han, get these hostages to the secure area where Min is gathering the others. I'll coordinate with Rock." "Alone?" Han questioned. "We're spread thin already. Go." After Han led the hostages through the maintenance access, Kim opened the comm channel again. "Commander, I can see your position. There's a maintenance tunnel 3 meters to your right that can get you out of that kill box. My warriors cannot fit in your crawl spaces, human," Rock snarled, his voice strained as weapons fire echoed in the background. "No, but you can use it as a firing position. I'll guide your team out another way." Kim worked quickly, using the command center's systems to map a route. He noticed something alarming on the environmental controls. "Commander, they're lowering oxygen levels in your section. You have maybe 10 minutes before your team starts losing consciousness." A grudging acknowledgement came through. Kim watched as one Crozorn warrior moved to the maintenance access panel and ripped it open, using the small opening as a protected firing position just as Kim had suggested. "I'm heading your way," Kim said, gathering equipment. "Hold that position." He moved quickly through the station's maintenance network, carrying extra breathing apparatus. The path to the Crozorn position was more exposed than he liked, requiring him to cross several main corridors. As Kim approached one junction, he froze. 3 terrorists were placing explosive charges along the bulkhead, directly in the path he needed to take to reach Rock's team. Without backup and outgunned, Kim did something the terrorists never expected. He walked directly into view, hands raised. "Hey! I'm lost," he called out in slurred speech, swaying slightly. "Where's the passenger lounge?" The terrorists turned in surprise, weapons raised but confused by the appearance of a seemingly drunk human wandering the station during a hostage crisis. "How did you?" one began. Kim moved with explosive speed. His first thrown knife caught the lead terrorist in the throat. As he dropped, Kim was already closing the distance to the second, moving inside the arc of his weapon and delivering a precise strike to a nerve cluster that dropped the alien instantly. The third terrorist managed to fire once, the shot grazing Kim's arm before a sweeping leg kick knocked the weapon away. A quick combat sequence ended with the final terrorist unconscious. Kim quickly secured them, disabled the explosives, and continued toward Rock's position, now nursing a burned arm. He reached the corridor where the Crozorn were trapped just as the oxygen levels were becoming critical. The massive warriors were still fighting but showed signs of distress, their movements slowing. "Commander," Kim called through the comm, "I'm at your rear position with breathing apparatus. I've created a diversion on the terrorists' flank. When you hear it, push forward to Junction 12B. Why should I trust your plan, human?" Rock wheezed, the oxygen deprivation affecting even his powerful physiology. "Because I've already secured 2 hostage groups and cleared your escape route while your frontal assault got stuck," Kim replied bluntly. "And because your warriors will die in approximately 3 minutes without my help." A tense moment passed before Rock responded. "Very well. We await your signal." Kim placed the small devices he'd assembled from parts taken from the command center. Timing would be crucial. He activated them remotely, causing a series of explosions and alarms to trigger in a distant section of the station. The terrorist fire wavered as some of them responded to the new threat. In that moment, Kim tossed the breathing apparatus to the nearest Crozorn and led the charge forward. The combined force pushed through the weakened terrorist position. Kim moved with surprising speed and precision, taking down enemies with targeted strikes rather than brute force. The Crozorn, seeing this different fighting style at close range for the first time, adapted their own approach, focusing more on precision than power. They reached the junction Kim had indicated, securing a defensible position where the atmosphere remained stable. As the warriors caught their breath, Commander Rock approached Kim, towering over the human. "Your arm is injured," he noted, yellow eyes fixed on the burn. "It's nothing," Kim replied, already checking his tactical display. "We still have one hostage group to secure and the terrorist leader to capture. My second-in-command, Sub-Commander Jin, needs medical attention," Rock said, gesturing to a severely wounded Crozorn. Kim assessed the injured warrior. "I can stabilize him, but he needs to be evacuated." As Kim treated the alien's wounds with his field medical kit, Rock watched in silence. Finally, he spoke in a lower tone. "Your methods are unorthodox, but effective." The final hostage group was held in the station's engineering section, where the terrorist leader, a renegade Talari commander named Dev, had established his last defense. Heat signatures showed 15 hostages surrounded by 8 heavily armed terrorists. The engineering section's delicate equipment made a direct assault extremely risky. Lieutenant Kim and Commander Rock crouched behind a bulkhead, studying the tactical display. The remaining Crozorn warriors gathered behind them, their earlier mockery replaced by attentive focus. "The reactor controls give them too much leverage," Rock growled. "One wrong move and they could overload it." Kim nodded. "Which is why we don't give them time to make that move." He pulled up the station schematics on his wrist device, highlighting a maintenance access point. "There's a cooling duct that runs directly above their position. It's just wide enough for one person to navigate." "Another crawlspace," Rock said, but without the earlier derision. "My warriors cannot." "I'll go," Kim interrupted. "But I'll need your team to create a specific distraction." The plan formed quickly. The Crozorn would simulate a full frontal assault, drawing attention to the main entrance while making enough noise to mask Kim's approach through the cooling duct. Sergeant Min and Corporal June would coordinate from the security hub, manipulating the station's systems to aid the operation. As Kim prepared to enter the ventilation system, Rock stopped him. "You're wound," the commander said, gesturing to Kim's injured arm. "It will limit your effectiveness." "I'll manage," Kim replied. Rock studied him for a moment, then removed a small device from his armor. "A healing patch. It will numb the pain and accelerate recovery. We use them in extended battles." Kim accepted the offering with a nod of thanks. The small gesture wasn't lost on either of them. The operation began precisely 3 minutes later. The Crozorn warriors created a tremendous commotion at the main entrance to engineering, their weapons and booming voices echoing through the station. Meanwhile, Kim slipped into the cooling duct, moving silently above the terrorist position. Through grated openings, he could see the hostages huddled against one wall, the terrorists positioned behind equipment for cover. The terrorist leader, Dev, stood at the reactor controls, his forearms poised to trigger the overload sequence. Kim waited for the signal. On his display, he watched as Min and June executed their part of the plan, a careful manipulation of the engineering section's lighting and temperature controls. The lights flickered, then dimmed slightly. The temperature dropped several degrees in seconds. Small distractions, but enough to create momentary confusion. In that instant, Kim dropped from the ceiling, landing directly behind the terrorist leader. Before Dev could react, Kim had disabled 2 of his forearms and secured him in a specialized hold developed specifically for the multi-limbed Talari species. "Weapons down or he dies," Kim announced, his voice carrying across the room. The remaining terrorists hesitated, surprised by his sudden appearance. In that moment of indecision, the main doors burst open. Commander Rock led his warriors in a perfectly timed charge, not wild and reckless as before, but targeted and precise. The combination of tactics worked flawlessly. Within seconds, the terrorists were subdued with minimal damage to the critical systems. Not a single hostage was harmed. As Confederation security forces arrived to take control of the station, Kim found himself standing beside Commander Rock in the main control room. Admiral Toll had arrived personally to oversee the aftermath. "An impressive operation," the Admiral said, compound eyes shifting between them. Both teams contributed to its success. Rock straightened his massive frame. The human tactics were unexpected. but effective. And the Crozorn adaptation to our approach was critical to the final phase, Kim added. Commander Rock's warriors showed remarkable flexibility. The Admiral's upper limbs made a gesture of approval. Perhaps there is much our forces can learn from each other. Later, as the SAS team prepared to return to the Confederation vessel, Subcommander Jin approached. His wounds had been treated, but he still moved with care. Lieutenant, he said formally, I would not be standing here without your intervention. Kim nodded acknowledgement. Any soldier would do the same. Perhaps, Jin replied. But not all would know how. Your combat techniques are unlike anything I have seen. Would your team be willing to demonstrate them for my warriors? That evening, in the Confederation vessel's training hall, an unusual sight greeted any who passed by. The human SAS team stood in the center, surrounded by Crozorn warriors twice their size. Lieutenant Kim demonstrated techniques developed on Earth: precise strikes, leverage-based throws, and tactical approaches designed to overcome superior strength and size. Commander Rock watched from the side, his earlier mockery forgotten. Your planet, he said when Kim joined him during a break, it must produce remarkable challenges to develop such adaptable warriors. Kim smiled slightly. Earth has taught us that strength comes in many forms. Sometimes the strongest isn't the one who can lift the most, but the one who can adapt the best. 2 weeks later, at the Confederation Military Academy, a new training program was announced: Adaptive Combat Techniques, jointly led by Earth's SAS and the Crozorn Elite Forces. When a young cadet asked Commander Rock why the fearsome Crozorn would train alongside humans, his answer was simple.